How's it going, Hive Mates? This is Braxton with Birds and Bees Podcast, and what I figured I'd be doing, so I spend a lot of time in my commute, and I figured this is a really good time to talk about questions that I get all the time, or just in my day-to-day commute. So, well, I don't get them in my commute, but people have been asking me questions online, sending me texts, as well as I was at a conference yesterday, and I had this sweet lady come up and talk to me about how she spoke to her kids about sexual health. And she said, we gave our youngest probably the most information, because at age 8 she was asking a lot of questions. And when she told me about that, I was excited. I was like, that's great, I'm so glad that you talked to them. She said, the other ones we kind of let do their own thing, but our 8-year-old, we definitely gave her a lot. But you just can't go into details. You know, it's just too much for kids. You just don't go into details. And so I want to talk about that today. When I'm on my way I'm actually headed to a superhero party. And I know Venom is not necessarily a superhero for a lot of people. He's known as a villain with Spider-Man much more than he is a superhero, but he's got a little good in him. I don't know if you've seen the new movie, but I've been a Venom fan since I was probably 8 or 9 years old, and really excited that Venom just came out with his own thing, and it looks like they're going to use him a lot more than they did in Spider-Man 3, which makes me really happy. It's awesome. Go Venom. Anyways, so what I want to talk about while I'm on my commute with this is details. We are so afraid of telling our kids about details. What is too much? How much is enough? What age? When are they supposed to know about these things? And what should we do about it? And so that's what I want to address today, because if we can talk to our kids and we can ask them questions, the first thing that I want to talk about is a lot of the times we feel like we have to have all the answers, and we don't need to have all the answers. No, we just need to have questions. Number one, you gotta have questions. Ask your child what they're curious about, or what they want to know. Understand that some kids are gonna say, I don't want anything. I don't want to know anything, and that's fine. That means that you're gonna have to take more of a direct approach in telling them what you feel they need to know. But for most other kids, they're going to have questions here and there, and it's so important just to be curious with them. We walk into these conversations with our kids thinking we need to know exactly what information they need at the time, when really we can just ask them, hey, what is it you want to know? And react to that, versus feel like you've got to walk into it knowing everything. It's kind of the same aspect of, if any of you gone to high school or college, which I believe a majority of you have. In high school, they give you tests. In college, they give you tests. Were you one of those that asked, hey, what's on the test? You know, kind of in a joking manner. Hey, teacher, what's in the test? It doesn't work in high school or college, right? But it does work as a parent. It works as talking to your child. Because if you can look at it in the sense of, we don't know what our child wants to know, we can study a little bit about what they need to know at a certain age. However, if you want to know what your child wants to know, ask the question. Hey, what do you want to know about sexual health? What do you want to know about boys and girls? What do you want to know about dating, about sex? Those are, what questions do you have? If you can answer those and you can ask some questions that way, that is going to give you the upper hand on knowing what's on the test, if you will, knowing what they want. So that's number one thing I encourage. I highly encourage doing that cool motorcycle. Totally dig motorcycles, by the way. I've got my own VTX. It's a Honda motorcycle. So, tangent. However, so number two, the thing that I was telling her is, I said, you know what, it's important to approach kids, ask them questions, and then also recognize that you don't need to have all the answers, but it's so important we have multiple conversations. We need to have more than just one conversation. We need to have more than the conversation that we've been preparing for by asking questions. We need to have a conversation with them on, hey, day-to-day basis, how do we get to use the language that we want to use in these conversations? If depending on the ages, let's say you got a younger child, 5 years old. What have you been doing to prep that 5-year-old to be able to hear the word penis or vulva or sperm or egg? A lot of people use the word private parts, and that's up to you in your value system. However, that is also you can also use penis and vulva just as much as you use elbow, fingers, and anything else that they've got to learn. They've got to learn all sorts of things as they're growing up. So you prepping them is going to help them the most, and it also makes it less awkward. The thing after, as I said that, I said, hey, you just need to be able to talk about it in multiple occasions. And she said, but it's so awkward. And she was cute. She was probably in her 70s. So her kids that we're talking about, her 8-year-old is no longer, she's not 8, she's 40. So she said, it's just so awkward. How can you have a conversation with this awkwardness? And the conversation, someone interrupted because we were at a conference and she went off on her own thing. But I really wish I'd had the chance to tell her, hey, you know what? Yeah, it can be awkward. It can be awkward to talk about this. If you make the words and you're not able to make the more common term, it's awkward. It can be extremely awkward to learn new words and to say things that are based around sexual health. But I guarantee, if you get ready and prep yourself to be able to say body parts, say penis, vulva, as your teenager gets older, you're gonna have to be able to say words like blowjob and intercourse and other things that might be uncomfortable for you. But you have to check in with yourself on what's comfortable or not. So I wish I could have told her that. It doesn't have to be awkward. We make it awkward. Sex is a natural thing. Sex is something that, if you can look around, I'm looking at all these cars driving by me. Every single one of them is a sexual being. This guy with this cool Ford Power Stroke 6.7 liter, he's a sexual being. So is this guy in the semi. I'm a sexual being. You're a sexual being. That's important for us to remember. Your children are sexual beings. Let's not avoid that. Talk to them. Let's not make this awkward. I'm driving down I-15 here in Salt Lake City. Same penis. It's okay. So that's what I wish I could have told her. But she was asking the question, we can't be in the details, we can't give details. It's awkward and it's too much information for those small brains, and it's not. Now again, you don't need to, the hard part is you have to know where they're at. Again, if you're talking to a 16-year-old, they need a whole lot more information than a 5-year-old or a 3-year-old or an 8-year-old, but there's age-appropriate stuff. And we have it on the podcast with Alicia Worthington, and I know I talk about it in other episodes as well, but Alicia Worthington has really great tips on bringing up these conversations with your kids, and I'll have more of these videos about conversations to have, answering questions. So if you have a question that you'd like to ask me, you can always text it to 385-449-1818. You can text it, you can give me a call, leave me a voicemail. You don't have to worry, I'm not going to answer it. It just goes to a voicemail. And ask your question. I'd love to hear it. You can also email me, birdsandbeespodcast@gmail.com. And gosh, you can do it on Facebook. There's a lot of ways to get these questions to me. And if you're here in Salt Lake or you see me at a conference when I'm in your town, I would love to hear your questions. Come up and ask me. But I'm going to be doing more of these. I'm also going to be doing more of the podcast, so be sure to check out Birds and Bees Podcast. It's on Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, birdsandbeespodcast.com. But until then, remember, you can keep the buzz alive by having these conversations. Let's get comfortable together. See you guys later.